think it's fair to say that we are sort of at a transition point, which is very similar to where we were maybe 100 years ago, when the advent of the internal combustion engine and the private automobile arrived on the city streets to kind of displace the streetcars and the horse and buggy and the rest. And I think it's fair to say that we're potentially at a similar shift in kind of that paradigm of how we use the public space in a city. And I've used the example, and I might have suggested to you that you look at the YouTube movie, A Journey Down Market Street, where they put the streetcar, the camera on the front of the streetcar. And what struck me was, what I found so fascinating was how people used the street, used the space. In other words, prior to the arrival of the private automobile, the internal combustion engine, how did people interact with what was out there? And the fastest thing out there really was the streetcar, trundling down Market Street at about 10 or 12 miles an hour. A couple of horse and buggies going by, horses and carts, people on bicycles. But you notice the pedestrians just freely roaming across. And really what this does is it reflects how we used the urban space since the creation of cities thousands of years ago in Mesopotamia, up until the turn of the 19th century into the 20th century. This is how we used to interact with the city. We went into a space between the buildings, and the pedestrian felt that they could go anywhere between the buildings. If you saw something across the street that interested you, you went across the street. You saw somebody you knew across the street. You went across, said hi, and then you wandered back. You were free rein. And then along came the car, and unwittingly we let the car basically decide how we use the city. It kind of forced us out to the edges of the buildings, and now we can only use the edges. If I see something across the street, I have to go down to the intersection. I have to wait for the stoplights to let me cross the street, and then I've got to walk back up. And so it's completely changed how we interact with our space in the city. And so the current condition is in fact an anomaly historically. That we basically, this is a modern condition, and this is not how we used to interact with cities. And we're at a point now, if the autonomous vehicle were to come in, as how that autonomous vehicle could interact with the pedestrian, freeing up space, because it inherently will use the space more efficiently. It uses less footprint of roadway, and how it's able to interact and control itself amongst people. And it has a possibility for us to reclaim that public space of the city. So I think that we really are at an important inflection point. And at the turn of the 20th century, when the private automobile internal combustion engine turned up, people didn't know what to expect. This is a complete new technology. The design community or the civic leaders really didn't know what to make of it. But now, we don't have the excuse the second time. We kind of know what happened here. And it's like we're being given a second chance, and we can't miss this second chance. We've got to take a second chance and work to create a city that's for the people, for the pedestrian, for the resident, for the occupant, for just the users of the city. And this is what we need to do. And we have this opportunity coming in right now